When did you start thinking about the new F-150?
We started more or less as soon as the previous car had first turned the wheel. So I'm talking about late January of last year. We basically analyzed the new regulations, which are quite significant for this year, and we put together the first development plan for the wind tunnel to investigate the major changes of the regulations, but also the first mechanical studies of a few subcomponents and subsystems of the vehicle in order to try to get an early start on some of these important changes.
What were the main challenges of this project?
The 2011 year has quite a few new challenges that are probably more above average in terms of difficulty compared to previous years. If I take them in sequence, the reintroduction of the KERS is a major challenge. We learned a lot from the KERS 2 years ago. So the installation this year obviously builds on that knowledge, but is quite different. So that is quite a major mechanical project. And then there's the movable rear wing that is new to Formula One this year. So we had to study both the mechanical system for its activation, but also the aerodynamics of it in order to minimize the drag on the straight, but to not compromise the performance in cornering. And then obviously there was the new aerodynamic rules for the whole car. The double diffuser has been eliminated, so we had to work hard to recover that performance of the missing double diffuser. And then one should not forget also the new tires. When a car has new tires, the characteristics of those tires change quite a lot, and therefore we need to do a lot of simulations and a lot of initial studies to see how those tires affect the suspension design and also the aerodynamic characteristics of the car.
And what are the most innovative characteristics?
As we see the car in today's launch, there's already quite a few innovations. I won't get into all of them. For example, I would mention the rear suspension as one of them, and the system for the rear wing adjustment as another. But there's quite a few other things under the skin which I would prefer not to get into more detail. For the first race, we should also note that there's going to be a lot more changes to the car in terms of its aerodynamic configuration. So for the first race I would expect significant changes in the exhaust area and also in the rear wing area.
As a chief designer, would you like to have more freedom?
It would be nice to have much more freedom in the rules, to be able to exploit and to study technological solutions in much wider breadth. There's a good reason, of course, there's rules. If rules did not exist, the performance of the cars would be absolutely unmanageable, and I think also the cost of Formula One would be even higher than what it is now. So there's very good reason for which there are restrictions, but nonetheless it would be a nice dream to have fewer restrictions. The other thing obviously would be to have more time to do all the work between one season and the other. The rhythms are quite hard, and there's very little time to study various things as much as one would like.
Did you reach the target you had fixed in this project?
Last year we clearly were not the best car, and we set ourselves what we feel is quite an ambitious target of performance, both in terms of aerodynamics but also in terms of the mechanical characteristics of some other aspects of the car. We feel we have been quite good at achieving those targets, so we are quite optimistic about this car and how it will go in the season. That said, these rules are quite different to the previous year, so there's a fairly big change of characteristics of the car, and I'm sure our opponents will also have set themselves quite ambitious targets. and until one sees the cars lined up on the grid for the first race, one will not really know whether one has achieved the target, because the target is really to be ahead.
On a more personal side, do you feel obliged to win this year?
I think that's, being Ferrari, that's an obligation we have every year. We should not underestimate our opponents, who are extremely strong and very capable, but the name and the recent history is such that we feel this obligation every year, and this year is no exception.